This time on Between the Wheels.
As a teenager, I always wanted a Chevelle. I told all my friends that I was going to buy a Chevelle someday. July 1981, I was 16 years old, so I bought the car. It's probably around 840 horsepower, probably somewhere around 1,100 foot-pounds of torque.
If Dominic Toretto from Fast and Furious is a real person, definitely be you, because this is really impressive.
No replacement for displacement. Let's do this.
There's still a kid in me.
Yeah, I really like it. I love this car.
Now you must get some looks driving this thing.
Yeah, well, this car isn't around anymore.
Every given time, this truck always had 300-400 pounds of tools in it.
So what drives you with this car?
Just the fun of having it. And this.
So I'm standing here with Bruce with his legendary 1968 Chevelle, the Cheatha. Tell me about this car, man.
So as a young kid, I was always in love with cars growing up. Living back in Montreal, probably 10, 11, 12 years old, the gentleman across the street had a 69 Chevelle, a black one that I was in love with. As a teenager, I always wanted a Chevelle. I told all my friends that I was going to buy a Chevelle someday.
And that's what you did?
Yeah, that's what I did. Cutting grass, pumping gas, delivering newspapers, saved up some cash, went looking for a car. I found this Le Mans that I wanted to buy, and I was pretty determined on it. And then my dad the night before said, oh, there's a Chevelle Malibu in the paper for sale. He took me out and we went and looked at it off of Preston Street here in Ottawa, and this is the car. So that was July 1981. I was 16 years old, about a month and a half before my 17th birthday. And yeah, so I bought the car. Back then, it was midnight blue in color, had a 307. It was just a basic Malibu. I guess 1989, 90, 91, I did a full frame-off restoration with a close friend of mine. We did it all together. And this car was painted in the fall of 91. Back on the road in 92 in its current color and condition.
So this thing was painted in the 90s, and we're gonna get into that in detail as well. That's amazing that the paint has, you know, stood the test of time. It still looks amazing right now. I'm here inches away from it. It looks great.
Thank you.
Now, you mentioned the Malibu. So a lot of people hear about the Chevelle Malibu or Chevelle Malibu. What's the difference? Like, how come some of them are called Chevelle Malibu and some of them are just Malibu?
This is one of the few cars that has three names. It's a Chevrolet Chevelle Malibu or a Chevrolet Chevelle SS, right? So it's one of the few cars, like you could have a Chevy Camaro or a Chevy Impala, but for whatever reason, the Chevelle had three names. Which
interesting.
When I was young, I started driving this car. I used to go to the drag races. And I used to go to car shows, and during the restoration process of this car, I had a vision of wanting to be able to go to car shows, be competitive and win some trophies, which I've done. And I also wanted the car to be functional as a race car and to be able to go drag race and race competitively, which I've done. And
Really?
over the course of the years that I've owned it, it's on its 5th engine. It always gets bigger and badder and faster than it was before.
So this thing was both a show car and a drag car.
Yes, it currently is.
Really,
Yeah.
that's really rare. You don't very often see both. It's usually one or the other.
Yeah.
So it's definitely what makes this vehicle very unique. It's the first one I've seen like this.
Here's part of my philosophy. If I go to the drag strip and they outrun me, I can outshine them. And then if I go to the car show and they outshine me, well, then I can outrun them. So it's kind of
Cheatha always wins, right?
cheat always wins. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for
That's
sure.
awesome, man. Well, you know what? I think we have to look under the hood and see what you got under here.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Let's crack it open.
Sure. Okay, so this is the, I guess you want to call it the heart of the Cheetah. I had a 307 in this car, I had a 327, I had a 396, I had a 427. All the badges say 427. I drove years with the 427. 4 years ago, I guess now, I built this new motor. So it's currently a 540. It's basically all aftermarket stuff. It's probably around 840 horsepower, probably somewhere around 1,100 foot-pounds of torque.
No shit.
We ran it on the chassis dyno. It made 717 horsepower at the rear wheels and about 930 pounds of torque at the rear wheels. You got AFR heads. It's a hydraulic roller motor. It's 11-to-1 compression, so I can run it on pump gas. When I do go race, I add race fuel to it. It's a street carburetor. I tried to create this motor so it's got a ton of power, a ton of torque. I got a great big rad dual fan, so it's very streetable. It doesn't overheat. The tranny's a Turbo 400. It's got a 3500 stall, 10-inch converter, full manual shift. Got a heavy-duty aluminum drive shaft, chrome molly U-joints and yoke. We got a Mosier 12-bolt rear end with a 373 gear in it. Right now I have all the street tires on it, rims and tires. I have a whole other set of rims and tires when I go racing with slicks and front runners when we go to the track, and I take the exhaust off. So basically, it takes me about an hour. I can put the car up on the lift and swap out the tires, take the exhaust off, put the collectors on, and adjust my shocks, and then boom, instant race car, and I'm ready to go to the track.
You know, it's funny, that's the first thing I noticed on the wheels. That would be most people's drag tires, and that's just their street tires.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like, your race tires are huge, obviously, but even those are huge.
Yeah, no, the reality is it looks great and handles on the street, but
Yeah.
even given this partial throttle, will just boil those tires right off the car, so.
No kidding. With
Yeah.
that much power, too, I cannot
Yeah,
believe
for
those,
sure.
those specs are huge. So you've done every aspect of this car, everything you could possibly do. So when you're talking about ratios, what does the ratio do in terms of modifying that? What in terms of performance?
When you have more compression in a motor, you can create more power, obviously, but keeping the compression as high as you can go, but still being able to run on pump gas is huge, because
Okay.
race fuel is, you know, like $9-10 a liter. Like,
Wow.
So yeah, exactly. So being able to drive on the street and put pump gas in it, driving around on the street is huge. So usually the 11-to-1 compression ratio is kind of the, if you go higher than that, you're going to create detonation and stuff.
So at some point you just can't run regular fuel with the higher ratio.
Exactly, with higher
Okay.
compression ratio, yep.
So what cam are you running in here?
Okay, so there's four different types of camshafts. There's a flat tappet solid cam, there's a flat tappet hydraulic cam, or there's a hydraulic roller cam or a hydraulic solid cam. This here is a hydraulic roller cam. The reason why I went that route is, again, to be more streetable, try to create as much power as possible, but also keep it streetable. And usually with a solid type camshafts, you make more power, but they're not as streetable.
Okay.
So that's it.
So when you're saying they're not as streetable, what does that mean?
So solid cams, you constantly have to adjust them quite often. they're usually way more radical. They're harder on parts and stuff. The hydraulic camshaft or lifter takes up some of the tension. It just makes it easier on parts, helps it idle better drivability. However, you know, you can run a big cam with lots of lift and lots of duration, but still be a hydraulic, so you kind of get the best of both worlds.
Okay, so there's a lot you can do. There's a lot of tweaking and
yeah, exactly. One of the key things with trying to make you know, a lot of power and all that is the entire combination. Everything has to work in harmony. Like, you got to have the right size carb, the right size headers, the right size cam, the right intake. So everything works together as a whole. If one thing is too small or one thing's too big, it might not be efficient. So it's trying to make it work all together efficiently.
So in all these years, when you've been working on this car since the 80s, obviously,
yeah,
and you've changed the motor so many times, you've kind of dialed in what works best. And with, do you feel like at its performance, like is it at its peak, or do you feel like there's still improvements to be done, or do you feel like no, this is dialed in, like this is what the Cheetah's meant to be, like this is its final shape, I guess you could say?
Well, so having said that, I mean, you can always try. Like, the whole goal of racing is trying to always get a little bit more out of it. It's kind of an endless quest. I do have a few plans. I want to change the front coil springs and tweak the suspension a little more to try to improve it a little more. However, over the last 3 years of going to the track, I've changed numerous things. I've added dual adjustable shocks. I changed the front suspension to the drag race tubular control arms. And it's going to the track and fine tuning and learning things like anything from air pressures to how to adjust the shocks to what RPM to leave the line, all those various things. It's all trial and error, but there's always room for improvement.
Tell us the background of your racing background.
Well, like I said, when I was young, I used to go to Lustville all the time and watch, and I basically didn't have a big enough motor or potentially to race. So when we built the car, I wanted to drag race. Like I said previously, I had that in mind. That's why the roll bar and the safety stuff. So when I first got the car together after the restoration, I had a 396 and started going to the track with that motor. And back then I was running like 1280s and learned a lot. And then over time I switched to the 427. Basically was running in the mid 11s, 1150s, 1160s. I eventually changed the entire drivetrain in this car, motor, tranny, drive shaft, and rear end, to get it to where it's at now. And currently now, this car is capable of running high 980s, so at 136 miles an hour. So It's a handful. And still being a full street car with full interior, it's 3,700 pounds with me in the seat. And naturally aspirated. It doesn't have any nitrous or any turbos or anything, so pretty impressive, and it's very drivable. So I couldn't be happier with the result.
Right. If Dominic Toretto from Fast and Furious is a real person, definitely be you, because this is really impressive. It's amazing what you've done. It's taken. It's a lifetime achievement to do something like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very impressive what you've done here, and it's very unique, and you've done a lot of your own things. So let's talk about your story in terms of your restoration, everything, because the story is pretty amazing and very in depth of what you actually did with this vehicle. What was it like when you first bought it?
It was basically a bone stock Malibu. The interior was green. It had a bench seat in it. It was a 307 with a 2-speed power glide. It was just painted when I bought it. It was midnight blue. It had a set of Kragers on it. And I drove it for a year like that. Then the following year, you know, the hot rod fever bug thing, I switched the motor to a 327 and put headers on it and stuff like that. In 1989, the car was off the road for 3 years, and that's when I did the full frame-off restoration. Basically went through, painted every piece, every nut and bolt was new and all that stuff, and then it's constantly been an ongoing transition from there.
Was this your first project that you did?
Yes. I can't take all the credit for doing all the work on this car.
I was gonna say, where did you learn all this stuff?
So my buddy Brian, he was working in body shops and on cars and stuff, and he can honestly take all the credit for doing all the body work and the welding and actually the paint on this car. So the two of us, many weekends of cold beer and hamburgers and late nights, poking away at it. You know, lots. I did most of the grunt work and he did most of the finesse on it and stuff. Basically, then once the car was painted, you know, he'd had enough, and I basically spent the entire winter putting it all together, trying to get it ready for the fall. And then since then, I learned so much about bodywork and painting and all that other stuff. And currently now, I do full restorations on other vehicles, where I do all my own welding, all my own bodywork, and all my own painting. So
yeah, because this is quite the setup you have here, and you have lots of different vehicles, and I've looked at all these other vehicles, and they will be appearing on the show later on, and it's just amazing what you've done here. You look at this, like I was gonna say, this is beyond what the average person can do.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know if you wanted to call it an addiction or however you want to call it, or being compulsive, but yeah, I currently have 9 cars on the road, and it's a bit of a challenge. I still have a couple more lined up to restore, you know, ahead of me. But yeah, no, I always try to tell the young generation it's better than, you know, blowing your money on booze and drugs and all the other bad things in life. Right. This is an expensive hobby.
That's what the 80s were for.
Yeah, exactly.
Those times are gone.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, it's such a rewarding hobby. I mean, you know, there's so many downs, you know, you blow stuff up, or there's so much hard work involved, and you want to give up, but you know, like, you could spend 100 hours of trying to get stuff just so, and then you could be out cruising for that hour or at the racetrack and win that race, and it makes it all worthwhile.
No kidding. Well, this is amazing how it looks here, and you've done a spectacular job, and you got the roll cage, you got nice seats in there, you got absolute pristine interior. I think one thing we got to do is we got to put this thing up on the lift and see it from below, because that's not something we usually get to do.
Yeah, sure, no problem. We can do that. Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so basically this is all the, I don't know, inner workings, what makes the car tick. So back here we have an on-off switch, which is a requirement of drag racing. It's a safety feature. If you crash or roll, you switch that switch off, it kills the fuel pump, the ignition, and all that stuff. Back here we got a high volume, high flow filter and fuel pump. This here's a sump that a buddy of mine made in the bottom of the gas tank for me. Here we got the Moser rear end. We have airbags, part of the adjustability of drag racing. We have dual adjustable shocks, which are very expensive, and this is one of the key tricks to making this car work so well. This thing here isn't a sway bar, it's what they call an anti-roll bar. It helps the car plant and leave straight. We have rear wheel disc brakes, drilled and slotted rotors all the way around. You do all this stuff to make this car go faster. You have to do something to make it stop. We have fully adjustable upper and lower upper control arms and tubular lower control arms. These here are the tie downs. So when I strap the car on the car trailer to go racing. Yeah, and then here we have the custom aluminum drive shaft. We have 3-inch exhaust with Flowmaster mufflers. These here are what they call dumps or exhaust cutouts. They work on electric motors. You can open and close them on a switch inside the car. When I do go to the track, I remove the entire exhaust and just put collectors on here, just to save weight and to gain horsepower, because the collectors are actually tuned for the car. So you gain horsepower and you lose 80 pounds of exhaust weight as well. So the downfall of these header dumps is trying to keep the underside of the car clean. As you can see, it's very black. You get a lot of soot and stuff, but the sound is just amazing. So up here we got the Turbo 400 tranny with a polyurethane mount. This is the bottom side of the 540 with the Marasa oil pan. We got the heavy duty race SFI approved flywheel, the 10-inch turbo action torque converter. Up here we got Global West tubular control arms, lower and upper, again with QA1 dual adjustable shocks. These are a bit of a pain. You got to get your finger in here and try to turn them. Again, drilled and slotted rotors up here. Yeah, we got the dual fans and the big aluminum rad. Just standard steering here, no power steering, because that just robs horsepower. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. And every nut, bolt, clamp, tie rod, ball joint, everything's been gone through in this car when we did the full restoration. So that's pretty much it. In mind, this car is designed to go fast, and not really designed for comfort. So because it's so loud and drony, there's lots of vibrations. There's solid motor mounts. You can feel the vibration through the roll bar.
Yeah, it's nice though.
It's a full manual shift, even though it's automatic, so I have to change gears.
Interesting.
Special racing shifter. Basically, so the way it works is I slam it in the second, it won't go any further, and then I pull the lever, slam it in the third, and then hang on.
Hang on.
And then I can put it in neutral and then back into drive.
Wow.
So I got to pull the lever and get it back into first. So
you got to be a pretty good driver to drive that on the road.
Well, it takes getting used to. I've been doing it for years, so yeah.
So this dash looks great. So what, you obviously changed this. There's no way that this was a...
Yeah, no, for sure. Everything's been restored. The door panels are original ones, but I've painted them. They used to be green, the dash pad. This dash is new. The console came out of a parts car. I reupholstered the seats. New carpet. Various things like that. When I first built it, the roll bar was black. Then I decided I wanted it red, which was very tricky to paint with the headliner in here.
Yeah.
So I had cardboard and poly and everything all taped inside here. And
the headliner's amazing. You did a really good job.
Yeah, that's one of the hardest things to do when restoring a car.
Yeah.
But yeah, I painted the roll bar with a spray bomb. Got in there like a contortionist and painted it all with a red spray bomb.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah, and it's a very streetable, mellow car. Like you can.
I was gonna say, you wouldn't know there's almost 1,000 horsepower on this thing.
Well, when you'll see, I'll give it a little shot of gas later, and
yeah,
you'll have to treat it with respect, because if you punch this car, like, it's just insane. Yeah, there's lots of things to think about too when you drive, like what gear you're in, and I got an electric water pump. You got to make sure it's on, or it's not circulating the water. You got to keep it on the temperature. And I have 2 fans, which are fully manual.
Okay.
So I control them. I can leave them off to help generate some heat in the motor. Generally, I leave the 1 fan on when driving. Once you get hung up in traffic, and as the motor gets hot, I kick on the 2nd fan as a secondary.
Oh, so that's how you get it from overheating? Because I've heard a lot of people having problems with the big blocks and going down to a small block because of overheating. Is that kind of that's your secret, I guess? Is the fan?
No, it's a combination of having a nice big aluminum radiator and dual fans. So, yeah, that is a common problem with big blocks and the high horsepower is heating issues.
Wow.
That's just marginally giving it gas.
I can see why you need the belts.
If I would have punched it, we would have been sideways.
Wow. Wow. Holy shit. That is awesome, man.
It's also fun just to cruise and enjoy, but yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and you notice the shift light comes on. So what happens is there's a preset chip that you put in there.
Okay.
For whatever RPM is desired. So it's set at 6,000. So basically when the RPM hits 6,000, that light comes on.
Right.
When I'm drag racing, it tells you when to shift.
Okay.
And there's also a built-in rev limiter in there so you don't hurt the motor. And the rev limiter is set at 6,400.
Okay.
So if you punch it and the RPMs get wild, it'll just bounce off the rev limiter, prevent the motor from over-revving and doing damage.
That's smart.
Yeah, for sure. That's money well spent.
Yeah, and at the same time, when you're doing racing, it's hard to know exactly when to shift when you're just trying to keep this thing on the road with that amount of power. So.
Exactly. That way, like the light just flashes in your peripheral and you know to hit it.
Right.
And the shorter amount of time that it's on, the better job you did. Like where it just flashes in less than a second, like you know you're on.
Very responsive, and the brakes are really good too.
Yeah, no, I got good brakes.
You got good brakes when you go this fast. Well, that was a lot of fun. Well, listen, Bruce, it's been awesome having you on the show, man. Everybody gets a hat. I don't think anyone deserves it more than you between those hats.
Thanks, man.
So thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, man,
And
that's awesome.
We're gonna do more of your cars. Bruce has a van and he's got 65 Impala, beautiful car. So we're gonna be doing that. So I can't wait to see your other vehicles, and thanks a lot for sharing your story with us.
Absolutely, man. It was awesome. It was a pleasure. It was
man.
a lot of fun. Love it.
Absolutely.
That was all great.
We'll see you guys next time.
Okay, man.
On this season of Between the Wheels.
We've seen these trucks run, and it's really something truly amazing.
So when I was 14, actually, I found this on Kijiji.
You're 19 years old right now?
Yeah, 19.
A lot of people are gonna be wondering, like, where the hell did this guy come from? Time machine or something? But the time machine's not a DeLorean here. It's a 1970 Dart.
I bought it in 1983 for $100 in a used washer and dryer. Basically, all I had was the car and what was in the trunk, and I drove across Canada. My wife became pregnant with our son, and so I decided that he was going to take his ride home from the hospital in the car. It's a time machine. It really is. I get in it and I'm 18 again.
I saw the truck sitting in the backyard of one of my friend's garage.
So this thing was just sitting and no one was doing anything with it, and it just didn't really have much of a life. It looks in amazing shape, and you've done a good job of bringing it back.
Drop the money in the tank and enjoy the ride.
beautiful 1965 Impala with the legend himself. He returns, Bruce. Everybody that knows you said, just wait till you see his Impala. This is next level, man.
However, the car didn't look like this when I got it. I don't know what it was with this one, but once I started on it, I was literally in the garage every single day for anywhere from 6 to 12 hours, sometimes 18 hours. Sometimes I'd come up with an idea in the middle of the night.
This is sweet, dude. I feel like the president or something should be back there.
Next time on Between the Wheels.
So this is a 1971 Nova. Decided to make a race car out of it. We had to work backwards, and we totally took the whole car apart, right down to absolutely nothing. It looked, I'm sure cars in junkyards look better than this thing did.
Ross had the car, and I had the powertrain.
Henry had a 69 Camaro that he raced in stock eliminator.
And we amalgamated the cars together.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, don't get caught by the cops.